Hello everyone. Before we start today's video, if you could all do me a solid and lightly tap the like button, perhaps share the video about and leave a comment. If you are not subscribed, subscribe as well. It would greatly help this channel. Thank you very much. Well, isn't this just fantastic? Captain's log, subject 221115.3. The cubes are a bit dusty. I really shouldn't leave the cubes for so long, as there's a risk of inmates starving or worse, lodging official complaints to try and get released early, like I'd let that happen. Before we get into the meat of today's video, I'd like to go back in time to inmates number 126, aka Boris Becker, because he was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison for tax fraud. He will be, as part of a new scheme, a fast-track scheme no less, be deported back to Germany in time for Christmas, having served 7 months in jail. I am vehemently against this, but also understand that as he is not a UK national, it would be easier to get him out of our system. No doubt he'll be back here next year for Wimbledon, which again, I don't think is right in the slightest. Welcome everyone to the halls of injustice. It's been a while, sorry about that. Today we welcome inmate number 146 to the ISO cubes. Her name is Gemma Mitchell, and she is going to be spending the rest of her life with us. Owing to the length of the sentence, this should in some way give an indication as to the severity of the crime committed by inmates number 146. So what I'd like to do is tell you a little bit about who Gemma Mitchell, inmates number 146, is, the crime that Gemma Mitchell committed, and the sentence. We here are renowned dicks, so naturally our sentence is going to be more severe, and for the sake of this video, please consider everything now said a trigger warning. The crime is quite serious, as it involves one person being unalived. But do smash the like on the way out. Thank you. So just who is Gemma Mitchell? While many of you may not appreciate this because it is Wikipedia, there is in fact a Wikipedia article on Gemma Mitchell, which is quite impressive. I am going to cite this so you can understand who she is for this segment. I know Wikipedia is not the most credible of sources, but this is actually the most accurate source for this particular part of the video. Gemma Mitchell was born on the 22nd of July 1984. She's an Australian-born English former osteopath. Her mother worked for the UK Foreign and Commonwealth Office. She, along with her mother and sister, moved to the UK when her parents had broken up. In 2004, she attended the King's College in London to study a human sciences degree. The qualification included a course that was titled Structural Basis of Human Functioning, in which you learn to dissect a human body. This is important. And another module covering experimental anatomy. Because she excelled at this, she was awarded the Hamilton Prize for Anatomical Excellence and graduated with a first-class honours degree. She then went on to study osteopathy at the British School of Osteopathy. She then returned to Australia, where she set herself up as an osteopath. In 2015, she relocated back to the United Kingdom. After 2015, she did not work and was no longer registered with the General Osteopathic Council, which meant she is not allowed to practice osteopathy in the United Kingdom. In 2016, she was convicted for breaching a non-molestation order relating to her sister and brother-in-law. She was given a conditional discharge for the offence by North West London Magistrates Court. Because she'd moved back in with her mother and her sister, and the house was falling apart and she was doing nothing to help, even though the property itself was worth millions, yeah, things didn't go very well. And of course we should point out, a non-molestation order. Red flags, everyone. Lots of red flags. In 2020, around August, inmates number 146 met a woman known as Deborah at a church that they both attended, and the two women, described as devout Christians, then became friends. Deborah had lived in London for 30 years, having emigrated from Malaysia. She was a widow who suffered from paranoid schizophrenia and was taking suitable antipsychotic medication to manage the condition. Deborah believed that inmate 146 was actually curing her illness with spiritual healing, and that she was also having a relationship with the then Prince Charles, and was referred by the Fixated Threat Assessment Centre to a local community mental health team for sending letters to the then Prince Charles and then Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Because of how tight Deborah was with inmate 146, she'd actually offered the family £200,000 to help them do up their house. She later rescinded the offer though because she thought it wise they just sell the property and enjoy the money, because the family had been cheated out of £230,000 by 2 builders they had hired to renovate the property. As the next part concerns the crime itself, we're going to go into the crimes of inmate 146. On the 11th of June 2021, Deborah Chong was reported missing. It was shared on Twitter, with some tagging local MPs to try and raise awareness of this. Her lodger had actually reached out to the police to also indicate she'd gone missing. The police in turn went to Gemma Mitchell because she was somebody quite close to Deborah Chong. Gemma Mitchell, inmate 146, had told the police that her friend had gone to stay with family friends somewhere close to the ocean because she had been feeling depressed. The police started an investigation. This investigation reached a breaking point in July, but we'll get there in a moment. You see, while they were doing their investigation, CCTV footage told them a rather fascinating story. A story that involved Gemma Mitchell dragging around a missing blue suitcase. Here is one of the CCTV images. She was seen on multiple occasions with it. What had actually happened, and this involves a 2-week period, is that because Deborah Chong had pulled out of the £200,000 offer, this became the straw that broke the camel's back for Gemma, who decided she wanted everything that Deborah Chong had, which was worth roughly £700,000. So she went to Deborah Chong's home and beat Deborah Chong with a weapon over the head. She then kept Deborah Chong's body. Minor detail to add, she was decapitated. She then stuffed Deborah Chong's body into that blue suitcase. Her previous mentioned skill in human dissection really came in handy here. She waited 2 weeks and then drove 200 miles to dump her badly decomposed body in the woods of Salcombe, which is in Devon. To this day, no one knows why she decided to decapitate Deborah Chong and why she deposited her remains in Salcombe. And there's a reason for that. When we get to the trial, you'll understand. Eventually, the police had gathered enough evidence to act, and I have a clip of this part. The part where Gemma Mitchell, inmate 146, was arrested because the police had enough to prove she was involved. Enough to prove she had done something untoward. And just before I play that arrest clip, because it is important for context, a piece of evidence that had surfaced was that when she had driven 200 miles in a hire car, she blew a tyre and had to pull into a service station. The repairman called to change the wheel described Gemma Mitchell's confused demeanour and an odd musty smell inside the vehicle. A day after she had done this, holiday makers had found Deborah Chong's headless body beside a wooded footpath. So now I'm going to play the clip of the arrest before I add additional evidence against Gemma Mitchell.
Police! Hello there.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, good. There's no answer. Sorry, what's your name?
Sorry, we were asleep.
Are you Gemma?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, Gemma. Just could you hold a second?
Sure,
Come on a second.
Sorry, could I
Gemma, do you want to come out?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I just want to see them.
Hand just over to your hands. Alright, Gemma, at this moment, I'm arresting you on suspicion of murder. Okay, you don't have to say anything, but you may have a defence, do not mention one question, something which you later rely in court. Anything you do say may be given evidence, okay? Once we're in the cuffs.
Additional evidence: the blue suitcase she had used was stowed on a neighbour's shed, and while searching Gemma Mitchell's home, they uncovered Deborah Chong's fake will along with personal papers and account information, things she had taken from Deborah Chong's home. Oh, and the fact that Deborah Chong's body had been redressed in clothes meant for a much larger woman. So to the trial of inmate 146.
Driving the Volvo, waited in the car all that time with the windows down and the front door open, the passenger door open, when it was literally chucking it down with rain and it was windy. Why is that, Gemma?
No comment.
The car stank, didn't it, Gemma?
There are two aspects of this trial that make it quite unique. The first is that Gemma Mitchell at no point provided any evidence or counter to any claims made against her. She refused to partake in this process. I guess you could consider her hostile. You could really try and put pressure on her, but that didn't work. The second is her sentencing was televised. In the United Kingdom, this is new territory, but the nature of the crime itself, I'll be honest, I'm okay with it being televised. Putting on blast somebody that made the mistakes that Gemma made? Yeah. When the jury is shown videos like what you now see on the screen, things don't look good for Gemma Mitchell. They really don't. Oh, and just an FYI on why we were able to see the sentencing on this one, a recent change in UK law permitted television cameras into the court, and to protect the jurors, only the judge would be filmed. You may have seen something like this recently with the Amber Heard Johnny Depp verdict. You didn't see the jurors at all. You saw the judge, and you saw basically everyone on the other side from the jurors. Gemma's defense team tried to argue that there was no evidence to support the claim that Chong's body had been stored in the suitcase because of a lack of DNA evidence. There was also no evidence of a struggle at Deborah Chong's home. The counter to that is, inmate 146 Gemma Mitchell broke her finger at Deborah Chong's property, along with there being mountains of evidence via CCTV footage of her dragging suitcases. A suitcase that had gone magically missing after she'd come back from Salcombe. Oh, and the fact she'd had the tyre repaired, the car smelt funny. You know, the list does go on. The clothes perhaps on Deborah Chong's body that didn't belong to her. Additionally, the forged will was presented during the trial, which in turn left 95% of Deborah Chong's estate to Gemma Mitchell to be applied for the benefit of Gemma Mitchell's projects, with the 5% remaining to Gemma Mitchell's mother. That's a fascinating split. After 7 hours of deliberation, on October the 27th, 2022, the jury unanimously found Gemma Mitchell guilty of unalive. Sentencing was passed on the 28th of October, along with victim impact statements being read by Deborah Chong's sister. Judge Richard Marks KC then went on to describe what was in fact televised, and I'm going to play a clip of that.
I said at the outset of these remarks that I would return to the issue of mitigating and aggravating features. The sole mitigation is that you are effectively a woman of previous good character, although given gravity of your crime, in my judgment, that entitles you to only a very modest discount. As to aggravating features, there are the following. Firstly, the amount of planning and premeditation that went into this offence, although it is right to acknowledge that this is bound to be an invariable feature of a killing done for gain, and I must avoid double counting. Secondly, there is the issue of Deborah's mental and physical vulnerability, to which I have already referred. The sentence of the court is one of life imprisonment, and the minimum term of imprisonment you will in any event be required to serve will be 34 years.
Gemma Mitchell was sentenced to life with a minimum term of 34 years. She will not be eligible for parole until the 10th of July 2055, by which time she will be 72 years old, which means you get 5 more years longer than what Deborah Chong had on this planet. You, Gemma Mitchell, inmate 146, are sentenced to life. Here though, that means life. There is no escape for you, and there's no guarantee you get to 72 years old. You had a home worth 4 million, and you had over 90 grand in savings. You took someone out because you wanted 700,000-ish. How pathetic. And all because they couldn't help you, and they thought the best option for you would be to sell a property where you would have gotten more money anyway.